Palestinian journalist Hussam Shabat was killed in Israeli strikes in Gaza yesterday, medics said. People rushed, screaming and crying, to the strike location as Shabat's body laid on the ground next to his car. According to Al Jazeera's website, Shabat was a contributor to Al Jazeera. Another Palestinian journalist, Mohammed Mansour, was also killed in Gaza earlier during the day, medics said. The Palestinian Journalists Syndicate said at least 206 journalists have been killed by Israeli fire in Gaza since early October 2023, when the conflict erupted. There was no immediate Israeli comment. Israeli military strikes across the Gaza Strip killed at least 21 Palestinians, local health authorities said on Monday, as Israeli forces operated in Rafah near the border with Egypt, escalating a new week-long aerial and ground offensive. Health officials said Israel has killed nearly 700 Palestinians since it resumed attacks on Gaza last Tuesday, ending weeks of relative calm after a ceasefire in January. It said the deaths included at least 400 women and children. Palestinian group Hamas said several of its senior political and security officials had also been killed. Israel says it resumed its military operations to force Hamas to release the remaining hostages it is holding in Gaza. It says it does its best to reduce harm to civilians and has questioned the death toll by health authorities in the Hamas-run enclave. Palestinian officials on Sunday put the death toll from nearly 18 months of conflict at over 50,000. Israel launched its offensive in Gaza after Hamas fighters stormed southern Israel on October 7, 2023, killing 200 people, mostly civilians, and taking more than 250 hostages, according to Israeli tallies.
The renewed U.S. attacks on Yemen, launched just over a week ago, has so far taken out key Houthi leadership figures, including the group's top missile specialist. At least that's the claim by White House National Security Advisor Mike Waltz. Video of the military operation was released on yesterday. The U.S. military has so far released few details about the operation. Launched, the Houthis reimposed their Red Sea blockade after Israel broke the Gaza ceasefire. The U.S. military released video over the weekend of fighter jets taking off both day and night to conduct strikes. We've hit their headquarters, we've hit communications nodes, weapons factories, and even some of their over-the-water drone production facilities, Waltz told CBS News. Waltz did not identify the slain missile specialist and gave no details on the other leaders who have been killed. The attacks come as 2 U.S. aircraft carriers have deployed to the Red Sea, and the Trump administration has repeated threats against Iran.
Top Trump administration officials mistakenly texted war plans to a group that included a journalist, the White House said on Monday, in a misstep that has drawn swift condemnation from Democratic lawmakers. The editor-in-chief of The Atlantic, Jeffrey Goldberg, said in a report on Monday that on March 13th he was unexpectedly invited onto an encrypted group chat on Signal Messenger called the Houthi PC Small Group. Messages in the group made Goldberg aware that large-scale U.S. strikes on Yemen's Houthi rebels were coming hours before they started. The strikes over Houthi attacks against Red Sea shipping came on March 15th. Before they began, Goldberg said Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth posted operational details about the plan in the group, including, quote, information about targets, weapons the U.S. would be deploying, and attack sequencing. The chat also included accounts that appeared to represent Vice President J.D. Vance, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, CIA Director John Ratcliffe, and others. At one point, the person identified as Vance appeared to question whether U.S. allies in Europe, more exposed to shipping disruption in the Red Sea, deserved U.S. help. A person identified as Hegseth replied, "VP, I fully share your loathing of European freeloading. It's pathetic." Trump's nominee for National Counterterrorism Center Director Joe Kent was apparently also on the signal chain, despite not yet being confirmed by the Senate. White House National Security Council spokesperson Brian Hughes said the chat appeared to be authentic and that the NSC was reviewing how a, quote, inadvertent number had been added. When asked about the Atlantic report on Monday, Hegseth denied sharing war plans in the chat and attacked Goldberg's credibility.
So you're talking about a deceitful and highly discredited so-called journalist who's made a profession of peddling hoaxes time and time again, to include the hoaxes of Russia, or the fine people on both sides hoax, or suckers and losers hoax. So this is the guy that peddles in garbage. This is what he does.
Why were those details shared on Signal, and how did you learn that a journalist was privy to the targets, the types of weapons used?
I've heard I was characterized. Nobody was texting war plans, and that's all I have to say about that. Thank you.
In an interview on CNN late on Monday, Goldberg responded to Hegseth's denial, saying, quote, "No, that's a lie. He was texting war plans."
Mr. President, this is one of the most stunning breaches of military intelligence I have read about in a very, very long time.
Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer and other Democratic lawmakers have called the use of the Signal group illegal and demanded an investigation.
I don't know anything about it.
Trump told reporters at the White House Monday that he was unaware of the group chat incident. The White House has given no sign so far that the breach would lead to any staffing changes.
Hamdan Balal, a Palestinian co-director of the Oscar-winning documentary No Other Land, was arrested by Israeli forces in the occupied West Bank after being beaten and injured by Israeli settlers. His fellow co-director, Yuval Abraham, shared on X that Balal suffered head and stomach injuries, including bleeding following the assault by the settlers. Balal then called for an ambulance, but Israeli soldiers intervened, took him away, and he has not been seen since. A video from the Center for Jewish Nonviolence shows masked settlers attacking activists in a field, smashing car windows and throwing rocks. Some of the activists, including Josh Kimmelman, reported that Balal was blindfolded when taken. The Israeli military has said it is investigating the incident. No Other Land, a collaboration between Israeli and Palestinian filmmakers, follows activist Basil Adra as he risks arrest and violence to document the destruction of his hometown, Masafer Yatta, by the Israeli military. The film has won several international awards, including at the Berlin International Film Festival in 2024. The film has sparked controversy, particularly in Israel, for presenting the forced displacement of Palestinians from their homes by Israeli forces.
China's BYD car company continues to benefit from lower prices and higher sales than rivals. Revenue rose nearly 53% according to a stock market filing. For all of 2024, profit climbed 34% to $5.6 billion. BYD's shares in Hong Kong have risen by 51% year to date and are currently slightly off an all-time high reached last week. The Chinese EV champion overtook Volkswagen to lead China's car sales in 2024. It has continued to roll out cheaper models, contributing to the deepening of a brutal two-year price war in the world's largest auto market. BYD has also roiled the market in recent weeks by unveiling a new supercharging EV technology platform and announcing that it will offer smart driving features on most of its lineup at no extra charge. The Warren Buffett-backed automaker said earlier this month it had raised about $5.6 billion in a primary share sale that was increased in size, with proceeds to be invested in research and development and expanding overseas, among other purposes. Reuters has reported that BYD is considering Germany for a possible third international plant in Europe. Its overseas shipments jumped 71.9% last year to make up 10% of overall car sales.
Donald Trump could be more flexible than expected over new tariffs on automobiles and other goods. Speaking at a cabinet meeting Monday, the US president said his threatened levies would be imposed in the coming days.
And we'll be announcing cars very shortly, and we already announced steel, as you know, and aluminum. We'll be announcing pharmaceuticals at some point in the not too distant, because we have to have pharmaceuticals. We don't make pharmaceuticals anymore in our country.
But he said a lot of countries could get breaks without giving any more details. Earlier reports of the possible partial reprieve were hailed by Wall Street, sending US stocks sharply higher. But a White House official warned against expecting too much, saying Trump was still determined to impose strong reciprocal tariffs. The new president has regularly claimed that his trade policy will raise revenue and create jobs. On Monday, he announced a $21 billion investment in the US by South Korean giant Hyundai.
Hyundai will be producing steel in America and making its cars in America, and as a result, they'll not have to pay any tariffs. You know, there are no tariffs if you make your product in America.
The same day also saw Trump open a new front in his trade offensive. He said any country buying oil or gas from Venezuela would face a 25% tariff on exports to the US. Trump said the country was guilty of sending tens of thousands of very violent people to America. Venezuela's government said it firmly and categorically rejected what it called the new aggression. The latest move sent oil prices higher in Monday trade, with US benchmark crude gaining around 1%.
When news broke that ex-Philippines leader Rodrigo Duterte had been detained at Manila airport, Christine Pascual was in tears. The salon worker was tending to a customer when she heard and hoped it was one step closer to justice for her son, Joshua Laksamana. Duterte was arrested and transferred to the International Criminal Court over a war on drugs that left thousands dead. Joshua was one of them, killed in a 2018 police operation at 17 years old. His mother, Christine, said he was on his way home from a video game tournament in the northern Philippines when the police killed him. Police reports say Joshua shot at officers after ignoring a checkpoint in Pangasinan province. Christine believes her son was mistaken for a criminal due to tattoos on his arms. She said the tattoo was a character of a game her son loved to play with his friends. She also says she only heard the news of her son's death a week after he went missing.
Hindi ganun kahit nakulong na siya.
That 1 week, when Joshua went missing, he was actually already at the morgue. He suffered 6 gunshot wounds, and the police told me that he fought back, that he was riding a motorbike when he had no means to get one. You can see how the kid suffered when he was killed.
Duterte's war on drugs was a key promise that brought him to power in 2016. During his 6 years in office, 6,200 suspects were killed during anti-drug operations by police count. Activists say the real toll was far greater. Duterte has assumed full responsibility for the killings, but denies he led a campaign of systematic murder and says he instructed police to kill only in self-defense. Christine recalled Joshua as a considerate boy who wouldn't harm anyone or join gangs.
Even if I suffered just to keep working for my family, I know I brought him up well. That is my reason for working. I told them it doesn't matter if I keep working hard, as long as you don't turn out to be bad children. That's all I want. Which was why it was difficult to accept when the son you brought up well had experienced such an incident.
In 2019, Christine decided to travel to Manila and make a living for her 2 remaining children. She also joined protests and supported movements for victim justice. Christine hoped Duterte's arrests will bring accountability.
Parang kahit papaano.
At least for a little bit, the pain he received has eased a bit. He has not totally received justice because the police who killed him have not been arrested.
Totaling lahat nakuha niya na eh. Kasi hindi pa naman talaga napaparusahan.
And they just started with Duterte. But I am waiting for the time when the culprits behind my son's death are behind bars.
Pa rin ako na talaga ring makulong. Yun talagang gumawa sa anak ko.
Duterte is said to be the first former Asian head of state to stand trial at the ICC. Prosecutors have accused him of crimes against humanity for what they call a systematic attack on the civilian population.
Egypt has proposed a new plan to restore the Gaza ceasefire after violence escalated following Israel's resumed military operations against Hamas. The proposal suggests that Hamas release 5 Israeli hostages each week, with Israel implementing the second phase of the ceasefire after the first week. The US and Hamas have agreed to the plan, but Israel has not yet responded. The proposal also includes a timeline for the full release of hostages in exchange for Israel's complete withdrawal from Gaza, supported by US guarantees. Hamas has accused Israel of breaking the terms of the January ceasefire agreement, but has said it is still willing to negotiate a ceasefire and was studying proposals from US President Donald Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff. Israel resumed military operations to pressure Hamas into releasing the remaining hostages and rejected US proposals to extend the ceasefire.
With glaciers around the globe disappearing faster than ever, Swiss scientists say this one in the Alps could be partially saved. Though only if global warming is capped below 2 degrees Celsius. And even then, scientists say significant ice loss at the Great Aletsch Glacier, which is over 12 miles long and weighs billions of tons, is now inevitable. Matthias Huss is the director of Glacier Monitoring Switzerland.
So our new model results show that in Switzerland we are going to lose at least 70% of the total ice volume, and this is the very best case if we emit no further CO2 after 2050.
The Swiss Academy of Sciences modeled how different scenarios could affect the Alps. Without any climate mitigation, they say the 3 distinct tributaries that merge into a vast river of ice would vanish, leaving behind a deep gray valley. But if global warming holds below 2 degrees, glaciers above about 10,000 feet in elevation, like the Aletsch Glacier, could be preserved, though it would be much shorter and thinner. The research did not say which was the more likely scenario.
In the worst case, though, we may lose all glaciers in Switzerland by 2100. So it will be somewhere in between, but it's very likely that almost all glaciers are going to be lost. And I sincerely hope that only at Aletsch Glacier, at this high elevation, we may be able to preserve some of the ice.
According to a UN report, the last 3-year period has seen the largest glacial mass loss on record.
If the glaciers are melting, and we're speaking more about the glaciers in the polar regions where the biggest ice masses are located, if these glaciers are melting, the global sea level is rising, and it may be rising by up to 1 meter until 2100 and even more at the longer term.
More than half of the glaciers in the Alps are in Switzerland, where temperatures are rising by around twice the global average due to climate change. Their volume has fallen by almost 40% since 2000.
There could be 2,000 new HIV infections a day across the world and a tenfold increase in related death if funding frozen by the United States is not restored or replaced, the United Nations AIDS Agency warned on Monday. The disruption to health funding is having a devastating impact on people living with HIV or AIDS, UNAIDS Executive Director Winnie Byanyima told reporters in Geneva.
So this sudden withdrawal of US funding has led shutting down of many clinics, laying off of thousands of health workers. All this means that we expect to see new infections rising. UNAIDS has estimated that we may be having 2,000 new infections every day.
Byanyima said the figures were based on UN modeling, but did not give more details on how the estimates had been reached. She warned that without renewed US aid funding or alternative support, there could be an additional 6.3 million AIDS-related deaths in the next 4 years. Upon taking office on January 20, President Donald Trump put almost all US foreign aid on hold. The Trump administration said it froze the funding to ensure it was in line with his, quote, America First policy. Days later, the State Department said life-saving HIV work under the president's emergency plan for AIDS relief would continue. The US delegation in Geneva did not immediately respond to a Reuters request for comment. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio has dismissed concerns that Washington is ending foreign aid, saying waivers had been provided to life-saving services. Trump's team claims to have saved taxpayers tens of billions by cancelling contracts, firing workers, and rooting out fraud and waste in the government, although they have offered little evidence to support that assertion.
US President Donald Trump complained in a recent social media post that a portrait of him hanging in the Colorado state capitol is truly the worst. Trump said that the painting was purposefully distorted to a level that even I, perhaps, have never seen before. He called a portrait of former US President Barack Obama, which was done by the same artist, Sarah Boardman, wonderful, but the one on me is truly the worst. She must have lost her talent as she got older. In the post, Trump called on Colorado Governor Jared Polis to take down the portrait. According to media reports, Colorado Senate Republicans hosted an event alongside the artist in 2019 to hang the painting, which had been approved by the GRO.
Sepp Blatter, former FIFA president, and Michel Platini, former UEFA president, were cleared of corruption charges by a Swiss appeals court. The decision followed an appeal by Swiss federal prosecutors after the pair had been acquitted of fraud in 2022. The case centered around a 2 million Swiss franc payment bladder authorized for Platini in 2011, described as a consultancy fee for work done between 1998 and 2002. The scandal, revealed in 2015, ended Platini's bid to succeed Blatter as FIFA president. Platini's lawyer emphasized that the criminal proceedings, which caused significant personal and professional harm to Platini, failed to present any incriminating evidence.